Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Luz and all I do here is practice fluency using ESL discussion materials that are free and available online. My favorite website at the moment is the esldiscussionmaterials.com. I go by alphabetical order, so today's letter was T and the topic I chose was tourism. We have 10 questions to get through, so let's get started. Question 1. What images spring to mind when you hear the word tourism? Well, when I hear the word tourism, I'm thinking about a lot of happiness. So you're planning to visit a different country, you want to see a different culture, eat some different food, breathe some fresh air, hopefully in the new country of choice. Also, you've wanted to go to this location for a very long time, your bags are packed, and you're looking forward to a lot of positive things. So I associate this word with a lot of happiness. I'm also thinking about the wonderful cities from around the world, both modern and traditional or historic, that people flock to every single year to visit. And it's such a wonderful occasion when you happen to find yourself amongst these wonderful people, taking pictures, enjoying with your friends and loved ones. And of course, for you who's visited the new place, you're looking forward to making wonderful memories with your friends and loved ones. So I think it's a very happy occasion. But who can forget those airports and custom gates and all the planning that goes into planning a trip overseas? So a lot of images pop into my mind, but mostly positive ones. Question 2. Do you think tourism helps people in the world understand each other? Well, not really, and I'm very sorry to say this. I have seen in my experience that it's mostly open minded people that are curious to travel to places that are different from their home countries to experience new cultures, eat new food, experience different temperatures. But I think a large portion of the population don't care a lot about this, and they're very convinced that they live in the best place on earth, and why would they need to travel anyway? So I feel like tourism does very little to bridge the gap between people who want to explore and people who don't care at all to explore anything outside the boundaries of their home countries. Even with social media nowadays, it's not very hard to see, and also in person, it's not very hard to see people who lift their noses at people's cultures, foods, dances, etc., because they're convinced that their culture should be the standard across the board. So I think tourism does very little to bridge the gap, but it's really unfortunate. Question 3. Would you like to work in tourism? Yes, I would most definitely love to work in tourism. I've been very fortunate to travel to many countries around the world, and I was welcomed with open arms, bright smiles, and I was definitely provided the information that most tourists would be looking for anyway. So I would be really happy to return this favor. I am very pleasant, I'm very kind, and I most definitely can convey information in the simplest terms possible, hopefully. The only thing I have to mention is the language barrier because I don't speak a lot of different languages. But guys, if you ever see me doing customer service, I'm going to be putting my best foot forward. So yes, I would love to return that favor. Question 4. What are the good and bad things about tourism? Well, there are very, very good things about tourism, and I'm going to start with that one. So first is the cultural exchange. So you get to experience different cultures, eat different food, live in a different place. So I feel like that is the most enriching activity ever. Secondly, tourism gives you an opportunity to decompress. So you're in this brand new country, so you're, hopefully forced to temporarily suspend the challenges that you're going through in your home country so that you can work in this environment and be present and enjoy. So I think this is a very wonderful opportunity for people who are looking to decompress and de-stress. The third thing that I see is very positive is people get to see and live history or see and live the future if it's in a modern city. These kinds of experiences enrich our lives, and we get to see and feel time almost. So I love this about tourism. Last but not least, I think a great thing about tourism is that we get acquainted with humanity. On social media, I see a lot of videos of people who've never seen people from other countries, and they're staring, they're trying to touch hair, they're trying to touch faces, they're staring some more. So I think for me, tourism is a wonderful opportunity for people to get acquainted with all the combinations of humanity, and that is such a wonderful thing. The negatives of tourism, first of all, I'm thinking about time. So, tourism is a very time constrained activity because you're taking time out of your yearly schedule to go visit this place. So, of course, you're on a limited time, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes more for people who have more time. So, this means that you're not going to be able to explore all the places you wanted, especially if you're not managing your time very well, or you get carried away with like beautiful things in one city. So, you end up missing out, but you can always come back. So that's not a very bad thing. The other thing is the long hours of travel. Sometimes you're traveling across continents, so this takes a long time. And I know nowadays we have all these entertainment options on the planes and you can sleep, but still it's a long journey, and that's a sacrifice that a lot of people make. The other thing I'm thinking about that can be a negative of tourism is that you do require a relative amount of fitness, especially if you're planning to explore cities on foot. So you need to take care of your health. You need to be relatively fit to explore these cities on foot. And some of these cities are very walkable from one place to another, and distances can be long. If you're hopping on and off buses, if you're planning to drive yourself, you need to have a relative amount of fitness. I don't think this is too much to ask. So yeah, for people who are not into this kind of thing, I can see how that can be a negative. The last thing about tourism that I think can be a disadvantage or a negative is that you really need to take care of yourself. You need to think about where you're eating, where you're going to go. You need to do a lot of research. What's the best place to eat pasta in the city, for example? And you also have to use your common sense because sometimes people get like food poisoning. So I think it's added stress when you need to worry about these little things that if you're in your home country you don't have to think about too much. But for me, I think the positives outweigh the negatives. So yeah, we're doing tourism. Question 5. What do you think tourism will be like in the future? Well, I hope it remains the same for the most part, but what I would like to see, for example, are bigger seats on all airplanes, especially these longer routes. And it's not just that people in business or first or flex get the added legroom because people are cramping back there. So I'm hoping to see bigger seats across the board. The other thing I'm hoping to see is a reduced work week from our employers. So if we can get an extra day off every week, we're able to plan better, to have an extra day or two in a city of our choosing, to enjoy time with our friends and loved ones around the world. That would be so wonderful. The other thing I would like to see is virtual tourism, especially for old people. Of course, now with YouTube, for example, we see regular people like us documenting their travel experiences around the world, and a lot of people are consuming that content. I know I am, especially when I need some tips and tricks for different cities, what to wear, what's the weather like in that city, best place to eat, and things like these. But I think a lot of old people kind of surrender and they're like, I'm too old to travel, I'm not going to travel. So I hope like virtual tourism is a thing and they can still take pride in that activity and still have something to talk about, and they want to tell us about some experience they've had that doesn't have to do with a lot of movements and all that stress. So yeah, a lot of nice things to hope for in the future. Question 6. Is tourism something that only rich people take part in? Yes, I think so. And not in the ways that you think, actually. I'm going to explain. So, of course, when it comes to money, you have to have some disposable income that you don't mind dedicating to your activity of tourism. You want to travel, you're going to eat, you're going to lodge, so you need some money for that, of course. And it doesn't even matter. You don't need to stay in a 5-star hotel or whatever. You just need accommodation and you need to pay for your travel. So you do need some amount of money. So if you have any amount of disposable income, I think you're rich. So that's a good thing. The other thing is you need to have extra time. So this is the other thing, that people don't have a lot of time. So you need to have some disposable days in your yearly calendar to dedicate to this activity of travel. So the other thing that you need to be rich in is health. You need to have health, you need to have good stamina, relatively good stamina, depending on what you're planning to do and the activities that you hope to do in the city of your choosing. So that's a good one as well. The other thing you need to be rich in is a healthy amount of cultural appreciation. So you're traveling because you're curious. I hope so. So, you're going to see things that are outside your comfort zone. And I feel like when you're traveling, it's not a time for judgment, it's just a time for you to sit back and be entertained. And if you're not able to do this, it's going to be really hard to enjoy traveling. So, yes, you do need to be rich in a variety of ways for you to enjoy tourism or to take part in tourism. Question 7. What do you think of the idea of space tourism? Well, I really like the idea of space tourism. I like it very, very much. I'm not sure there's a lot to see up there for now because it's like a big empty planet up there based on the pictures that we see from NASA and all these kinds of websites. There's not a lot to see up there, so I think the main hype behind space tourism is the actual trip in one of these space shuttles. At the moment, the ticket is really expensive. Only a handful of people on Earth can actually afford this ticket. Hopefully in the future it's going to be much cheaper for more people to enjoy the trip because we as humans are still studying space. We don't know what's out there. So hopefully in the future, if we could have some aliens showing us around space, I think that would be a much more enriching experience. And I'm not sure it's going to happen in my lifetime, but I'm very much looking forward to that. I would be open to doing space tourism. Absolutely. Question 8. How does tourism change lives? Well, I think tourism changes lives in a lot of ways. So first of all, the local economy is always positively impacted, and the individual lives of the people in the country are also positively impacted as well, sometimes very directly. So tourism does provide employment opportunities for the local populations. We also have currency exchange. The locals are selling to the tourists, so that's very commercial and that's a good thing. The other thing is that the individual lives of tourists can also be very positively affected because they can adopt some positive practices that they appreciate in the local population. So, for example, if they're eating healthy, if they have wonderful salad recipes that you can borrow and try to replicate when you get back home, I think that's wonderful. Mindful practices, being kind, being happy, having a different outlook on life. And I know some people have fallen in love while on a trip. So that's a very, very big and positive impact. So I would say that the individual life of a tourist is impacted in very positive ways. So I like that. The other thing is that tourism can be very addictive. Once you start, it's very hard to stay still. And how wonderful it is that you get to spend a couple of weeks out of the year, in a different place, enjoying life with different people, different scenario. I think it's a wonderful thing and very, very good for the world and for the people in the world. Yay! Question 9. What is ecotourism and do you think it's a good idea? Yeah, so I first experienced ecotourism when I went to the Maldives. So the idea is that the resort is powered by green energy. And I think what I saw, I think it was solar at the time and some other type of clean energy powering the whole place. So for the light, the generators and whatnot, the showers, anything that needs power is powered by green energy. And also the other idea about ecotourism is that the resort doesn't generate any waste that is non-biodegradable. And this goes as far as the shampoos, conditioners, body washes in the showers. So it's not made out of chemicals that are harmful to the environment. So that is so, so cool. So it means also when the water leaves, like the used water leaves the resort, it's first cleaned to remove anything that could be harmful to the environment before it's released back into the ocean. Do I like it? Yes, I really, really, really like it. Although it's on the more pricier side, with time, the technology is going to get more affordable and a lot of people are going to be able to participate in ecotourism. I think it's a wonderful idea. You hardly notice that you're doing anything green because I think when we think about green energy, we think about all the drawbacks of it. Is it working? Is it not working? No, when I was there, everything was working perfectly. And it wasn't before the guide told us that we were participating in ecotourism that, we learned what it was. And we quickly forgot because, you don't even notice. It just works as perfectly as if you're in your own house. So I loved it, and I think it's a very wonderful idea, especially for marine life, because what are the little fishies to do with all the toxic chemicals that we release into the water? So I think it's a very, very sympathetic to marine life. So I like it. Question 10. Is there a difference between a tourist and a backpacker? Well, not really. I think both are tourists, but on a different budget. So, the backpacker, for example, is not willing to spend too much money on accommodation and transport, I think. But the regular tourist doesn't mind spending more on comfortable accommodation and, luxuries. They don't mind too much. But the backpacker is hoping to spend the maximum amount of hours on their feet, exploring the city with their bags on their back. The regular tourist, of course, prefers to leave their luggage in the hotel. So, yeah, I think both are tourists, but on a very, very different budget. And, when they arrive at the Leaning Tower of Pisa, it's the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So, I think they're both tourists, but on a different budget. So, that's all I'm going to say about that. Alright guys, so that is the end of the questions. I think the questions are quite wonderful. Let me know down in the comments if you would have answered these questions any differently. And until next time, see ya.